I like to say it's a science because all of these processes require monitoring, regulation, evaluation, essentially of getting an accessible, high quality and a safe product out. Whether you're cultivating, whether you're growing for an end product use, it's really important to ensure that quality. Current laws around seeds is our Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries. We need to maintain a relationship with them in order to get our seeds. You can't just bring souvenirs in from the US. Okay? So our current laws, whether it says it's a souvenir and it's in a nice little pipette and it's got a nice little cork lid on it, it won't be allowed. Customs will stop you for trying to smuggle in cannabis seeds. Okay, don't do it. Take a picture of it, send it to whoever, but don't bring it in. So what we have to be aware of is the laws in the area and the current legislation of the country that we're in. Okay. Cannabis seed storage, these are for where the areas where it's allowed. It must be dry, it must be dark, and it must be in a safe place away from the hazards. The seeds are quite hardy, but once exposed to that heat, moisture, and light, that's why the germination process is called popping, because they literally pop. That shell pops away around them, and they grow really, really well and with robustness. There are various seed brands. Now, when I say seed brands, I don't mean locally yet. We don't have any registered local seed brand manufacturers or seed banks, but there are overseas in the US. It's Dynafem, Sensi Seeds, Royal Queen Seeds, and they have very, very interesting strain names. One is Schnazelberry, one is Green Crack, one is Laughing Grass, the other one is even a Bark Obaba, which I'm sure is from the US along the lines of Barack Obama. There's Hogberry, there's Fat Banana. I suspect, and I would like to see, you'll see one of my much later slides, is changing the way we speak about the plant and the industry. Referring to a seed by Schnazelberry sounds fun, but if we're going to regulate and take the industry seriously, we're going to have to start finding names for them that are scientific, that are appropriate to their use perhaps, but I would detract from using the usual slang, as you'll see in one of my later slides. Then of course we have medicinal varieties. There are very, very specific medicinal varieties. Their names don't change. So for example, Euphoria is a medicinal variety. It has a very, very strong and robust CBD content. The ideal content or ratio from CBD to THC for a medicinal plant, medicinal seed, is 18 to 1. So your CBD is 18, your THC is 1, because that gives you your stronger, more CBD-rich medicinal strain. You can get 1-to-1 ratios, however, your THC component will be remarkably higher than that. A brief history, I'm going to go through, it's going to look like a lot, but a brief history of American cannabis and South African cannabis pertinent to us. It's important to have the context of the American history, because that's ideally where it all started and they were the first to legalize. So as far as 2737 BC, in the writings of the Chinese Emperor Sheng Lung, it's been mentioned. There's a lily product that's cannabis. My favorite one, and why probably none of our forefathers or great-grandfathers ever missed a day of work, was a cough syrup that had alcohol, cannabis, chloroform, and morphine sulfate in it. Okay? Anybody taking that is going to get to work every single day. They're just going to forget they were at work, but they were going to be at work. So that was my favorite. And then from 1850 to 1937, cannabis was used in the prime medicine for more than 100 separate illnesses or diseases in the US pharmacopoeia. Fascinating stuff. The drug was introduced into America by the Spanish in 1545, where it became a major commercial force and was grown alongside tobacco. In fact, it exceeded the cotton growth in that time. I thought this was a really, really nice slide. So this simple dried herb is illegal, and it gives a forerunner and a forerunning to my brief history from the US and from South Africa. However, if a multinational drug company grinds up that herb, extracts the cannabis sativa, and creates synthetic delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, combines it with gelatin, glycerin, iron oxide, red iron oxide, yellow titanium dioxide, markets it to doctors and hospitals under the name Marinol, and the process makes a bunch of wealthy Wall Street investors even richer, richer, then it's legal. So this is what South Africa needs to prepare itself to be grappling with as well. So marijuana per se was not illegal. It was just illicit because it was essentially a problem in the US brought in by the Mexican laborers. And what happened is that the companies saw that the Mexicans were using it. They didn't like the fact that they were using it. They didn't like the way they worked on it, and it became quite a problem. So much so that so many of the prohibition laws were involved pre-1930, but essentially the big history starts with the war on weed in America in the 1930s. What happened is there was a guy called Harry J. Anslinger, and he started a new division of the Treasury Department. He headed it up, and this new division was called the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. He was trying to very much protect the large profits that the pharmaceutical companies were bringing in, and the fact that Mexicans and many fellow Americans were using marijuana or cannabis for ailments. It was reducing the profits of these big pharmaceutical companies. He found himself an ally in William Adolph Hearst, who had serious ulterior motives. His four major ulterior motives were: he hated the Mexicans, he had a very, very, very big timber company, and the hemp business was starting to put him out of business in the paper production. He lost a big plot of timberland to Pancho Villa, and writing lies about marijuana was selling his very newspapers. So he had very, very strong collaboration. They teamed up with the DuPont Chemical Company and basically ganged up against this whole industry, and they introduced the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937. These three big players, Harry, William, and sounds like a royal family now that I say it. They started the Marijuana Tax Act. Marijuana then made its way in 1970 to the Controlled Substances Act in the US, and then with relaxing of some of the laws, California was the first to legalize in 1996, and they were shortly followed by Alaska, Oregon, and Washington, with another 11 states currently in the process of getting their legalization. I say a political and racial read. These were some of the slurrings of Harry J. Anslinger during the time of the Prohibition and the lies and the propaganda that he was creating around the weed. So it's not very far off from our South African history. However, he committed his to paper. So there are 100,000 total marijuana smokers in the US, and most are Negroes, Hispanics, Filipinos, and entertainers. Their satanic music, jazz, and swing result from marijuana use. The marijuana causes white women to seek sexual relations with Negroes, entertainers, and any others. He committed this to paper. How absurd. The primary reason to alcohol marijuana is its effect on the degenerate races. Marijuana is an addictive drug which produces insanity, criminality, and death. Reefer makes darkies think they are as good as white men. Marijuana leads to pacifism and communist brainwashing. You smoke a joint and you're likely to kill your brother. Marijuana is the most violence-causing drug in the history of mankind. Quote unquote, Harry J. Anslinger. This wasn't helped very much by the strong prohibition era and the Reagan and the Bush administration that followed. However, the legalization of California in 1996 did help the process later. On the back of that, killing your brother and having relations with other people, this was an extract from one of my growers' handbooks. So you see most of my books on my bookshelf are organic or growing or some form of research, and this table was in that book. It's very interesting. So the highest cause of death in the US, 435,000 from tobacco, Sexual behaviors, 20,000. Toxic agents, I missed that one. Toxic agents was 45,000. Prescription drugs, 32,000. So I'm hoping that this doesn't infer that once we regulate and put some form of cannabis on prescription, that it's going to be a killer. Okay, but it's highlighting. I know there's a lot more to this. There's a lot more context to this, but it's highlighting how long this plant and its extracts have been used safely. Our South African history, in the 1600s, the Dutch were buying and trading with some of the local tribes. However, this escalated to the first prohibition laws of cannabis coming in 1680. The colony of Natal in 1860 were employing Indian laborers, and it led to the 1870 prohibition because they were trading not legally. They were trading and they were using the product whilst they were working, and so because to control the bigger output and their cotton crops, they brought the prohibition. From 1870 to 1908, the sales started there were regulated sales of the product in various forms, and it seemed to have plateaued the issues out. However, in 1921, Western Cape prohibition came strongly into action, and in 1925, everything was internationally outlawed. The 1937 Weeds Act came into the Western Cape, followed strongly on the heels of these, to such an extent that state-sponsored actions of aerial herbicides being sprayed all over by helicopters happened in between 1980 and 1982, because it was sanctioned by government to spray all crops and everything just to get rid of unspecified crops as well. In 2000, even to Cape Town, every year in May, from the start of 2000, there's a cannabis walk. And in 2017, it didn't have many participants because, understandably, not many people wanted to associate themselves with something of this nature. It's an illegal drug, it's an illicit drug. But in 2017, there were 6,000 people during the cannabis walk in Cape Town. In 2009, the Dacca Party was formed by Jeremy Acton and his partner Merkel Clark. He still wants to challenge the tobacco and the alcohol industry in terms of legislation with cannabis. And in 2014, the Medical Innovations Bill was brought about by Dr. Mario Ariano Ambrosini. He had cancer and he motivated very strongly for the legalization of cannabis for medicinal and industrial use, and he got it right. So in February 2017, the first strong legalization of medicinal use and industrial use was brought about by Dr. Ariano Ambrosini. The nation of South Africa has had a long and complicated history with marijuana. Despite this marijuana, locally known as Dacca, was used by an estimated 3.2 million South Africans in 2008. Moreover, South Africa, I must say and add that we don't have processed products. Okay, so when they say it was used by 3.2 million South Africans, that's the raw product, and 98% of it is rolled into a smoking device. Moreover, South Africa is well known for its role in the global marijuana trade. Interpol estimates that South Africa is the fourth largest producer of cannabis in the world. And only now are we applying for cultivation licenses. The agency also estimates that a third of the cannabis seized around the world originates from South Africa. It sounds like a bad rap, but for a country where we've started to get cultivation licenses, that is a good thing. We have an ideal climate and growing conditions for a premium product. So there's always a silver lining somewhere. Okay. In terms of legal status of cannabis, so the United Nations Single Convention of Narcotic Drugs, very long acronym, because I know us pharmacists and healthcare professionals love speaking in acronyms. but for this purpose it will be known as the Single Convention of 1961. South Africa is a signatory on the Single Convention, and what we want to do with the licensing process of cultivation licenses, applying for licenses to make CBD containing products, export CBD containing products, distribute CBD containing products and cannabis containing products, we want to minimize the risk of diversion into the illicit market. We know there's already an illicit market. Okay, we're fully aware of that. We've probably sat next to somebody at a braai on a Saturday who's also fully aware of the illicit market. Okay, but in order to regulate it, we want to know what to do. And South Africa is a signatory on that Single Convention, and we, as a country, are bound by the International Narcotics Control Bureau. Okay? So we have to report to them what we have. At this point, the cultivation licenses have not been limited. SAPRA has not said we are only giving so many licenses. We are only have so many licenses. What they are saying is that our cultivation licenses and our potential to cultivate cannot exceed that maximum that is set out by the INC. Because once it exceeds that, that product is going to find its way onto the illicit market. And we're not fighting for an industry and for a regulation of the industry, for it just to find its way back, high quality to find its way back onto this. So that's the very crux of all the acronyms and all the departments of drug dependence and control of drug dependence. The idea is to regulate it, is to control the possession, selling, the cultivation, CBD products that are brought about, and that they do not find their way onto it. We have a legislative framework. We're all aware of the Medicines and Related Substances Act. Sections 21 and 22 indicate very clearly that the practitioner has to apply for a special license in order to prescribe it. SAPRA is very clear in that we have to have a license to cultivate, we have to have a license to distribute, we have to have a license to import or export, and you can only do that through SAPRA, through Department of Health Director General license, and then only once your facility has been inspected for compliance can you then establish that facility and license that facility. Bearing in mind that you can't start cultivating yet, because it's a bit of a chicken and an egg, because you've got your cultivation license, you've applied for your cultivation license, but now you need a seed. Where are you going to get this? Okay, so all of these kind of boxes essentially have to be properly ticked. Okay, so that's where our Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries come in as well. Okay, so we have a couple of landmark and current legislation rulings that most of us are aware of. So the landmark ruling on the 18th of September 2018 in the Concord of Johannesburg by Chief Justice Raymond Zondo allowed for personal consumption in a private dwelling of your own personal private supply, cultivation of your own personal private plant or plants in your own private space. Possession, public consumption, public selling is still illegal. You cannot go down the road to your local and light up or vape or eat a jelly or use some oil. Okay? It's for your use in your private dwelling. The kicker to that, however, was there were no limits. So the parliamentary decision did not give any limits as to how many you can grow, how many plants you can grow, how much you can use in your private capacity. So the Parliament has 24 months to decide on that from the 18th of September 2018. Okay. Pardon the pun, but this is cut and dry. Okay. It's not giving us a very specific, and remember, as healthcare professionals, well, at least I can't speak for everyone in the world, but as myself, as a healthcare professional, I need a framework. I need a guideline. Don't tell me you can go do this in your privacy of your own home. Okay, so I can have 20 plants in the privacy of my own home. Yes? No? Maybe? Not sure. Okay, so uncertainty makes people still quite difficult about this. there is a much more complex, integrated legal system that we're working with, because we are still open to the Drugs and Drug Trafficking Act. Okay? If I have my own personal, this is just a hypothetical situation, I have my own personal supply of my own personal grow. I go to a friend's house and I want to have my personal stuff in their house. I'm an adult in a private dwelling with my own person. Okay, so those are the kind of grey areas that are really, really important, because in that time from going from my house to somebody else's house, my friend's house, I get stopped at a roadblock. I'm in possession. Am I in possession for illicit use, for selling? Am I in possession of my own private space? Okay? This is where South African police services come into play, and I'm not sure at what point South African police services have been informed of this. Okay, if you're in possession, you're arrested. Okay. Prevention of and Treatment for the Substance Abuse Act, number 70 of 2008. I have to here say what the effects of the legalization are. Some of them are probably quite clear, but we have to consider the fact that it's increasing employment opportunities, it's increasing upskill opportunities, it's increasing potential for employment and specific qualifications. It's training opportunities, it's development opportunities. So we have to take a much more integrated and collaborative approach for the industry than keeping it segmented. It needs dialogue with everyone, okay, and input from all. This is just some of the exact essay constitutional court judgments that happened. So it was a unanimous judgment that Chief Justice Zondo made, and he said that Section 4B of the Drugs Act is unconstitutional, and it followed on from there, invalid to the extent that it prohibits the use or possession of cannabis by an adult in the private for that adult's personal consumption. Section 5B of the Drugs Act was constitutionally invalid to the extent that it prohibits the cultivation of cannabis, so that speaks to your own personal private adult use, consumption and cultivation. And then the Section 22A 9AI of the Medicines Act is constitutionally invalid to the extent that it brings the use or possession of cannabis by an adult in private in their personal consumption. So those were the essential changes that we made. The 24-month revision window I had mentioned, and then the following words are to be read into the provisions of Section 22A. This is just some of the specific legal jargon. In the case of cannabis, he or she being an adult uses it or is in possession thereof in private, or his or her personal consumption in private, or in any other case. The scheduling is currently still under review. As you will see here, CBD or cannabidiol is Schedule 4 when intended for therapeutic purposes. Dronabinol, which is your trans-delta 9, which is your THC, your psychoactive component, when intended for therapeutic purposes, is Schedule 6, and it still remains under the Medicines Medicines Regulatory and Substances Act. It still remains Schedule 7. And there was a comment by Berkeley Clark, she's the other half of the Duffer couple, which is Jeremy Acton's partner. She mentioned when she was chatting, she even asked a question, which was quite a thought-provoking question. She says, so I'm in possession of a Schedule 7 substance that I can have at my home, in my personal space, because I'm an adult with personal consumption. So that's why the scheduling is still under review, because the scheduling is what navigates us healthcare professionals through the quagmire that is cannabis. But it also becomes very confusing to the public when they start seeing these scheduling and when they start reading these kind of issues. So we really, really have to be quite specific and quite careful of the messages that we're putting out to the public. As I mentioned, SAHPRA is involved in the cultivation licenses, they're involved in manufacturing licenses, there are exclusions of certain preparations. That is the government's gazette of the 23rd of May. So the government gazette on the 23rd of May stated that there were exclusions of some products and that they may contain, they will be considered complementary medicines if they contain 0.0075% of CBD and 0.01% of THC. This creates further confusion because without any cultivation license, well, cultivation licenses have been issued, but nobody has already gone through the full harvesting cycle, which means that there is not legal local products available to be processed into a legal product, whether it's a canned product or not. It can't contain those quantities of THC and CBD unless it has been imported. If it's been imported, those companies importing it need the import license for THC and CBD. And unfortunately, what's been happening, I'm not sure, I've spoken to almost every stand here, and almost every person at almost every stand knows somebody who's growing, knows somebody who has a product on the market, is busy with something on the market, knows somebody doing something with cannabis. So it's a hot learning part of another topic. But we have to be careful. I caution anybody out there who's thinking of a quick fly-by-night product to put on the market. And yes, you can bleat on about it. It's easier to ask for forgiveness than for permission. But we are healthcare professionals. Okay? It's going to sound really, really bad, or be really bad if you're standing in front of the CFI commission because you have products on your market, on your shelf that have not been tested, that are not legal, are not from a licensed company or an importer company. Okay? So we have to be very, very cautious and read into it. And if you're not sure, rather ask. Okay, just a quick speaking about the endocannabinoid system. We are born with an endocannabinoid system. So everybody is born with a receptor system that responds to the cannabinoids in the plant. Okay? So whatever deity or space you believe in, the plant was put on the earth for our use. If we have an endocannabinoid system, there's a plant that has cannabinoids in it, it stands to reason that the lock must be the key somewhere along the line. As being humans, the lock must be the key under regulated and controlled circumstances. Okay. So just a quick roundup. CBD is a cannabidiol. It is the non-psychoactive component. Okay? This is the one that has all the health benefits that everybody is claiming to have in their products. I must say, I was quite flawed, and I always like to share the story. A couple of months ago, a product landed on my desk, a little sample of a product landed on my desk. Oh, try this out. And I saw handprints on it, and somebody had sent me a photo. I saw handprints on it, and I said to my partner, I said, this is a product for kids. He said, how do you know? I said, it's got handprints on it, looks like a clean product. The actual sample landed on my desk. It's a THC and CBD kids Play-Doh. So again, I caution you. There was another one for massaging at night, THC, CBD massaging for kids with eucalyptus and lavender and every other terpene, we'll talk about the terpenes now, involved in it. Okay. The scary part of it was the label claim was the government gazette label claim of 0.075% and 0.01%. When I asked them where their lab tests were, they said, no, we haven't tested it. We don't know what the potency is. Okay, so there are many layers to this onion, as Shrek said to Donkey when they were speaking. Okay, but we have to address all of those layers of this onion. Epidiolex is a product that's available in the UK. It is the first and only FDA and UK approved pharmaceutical product with CBD in it. It is used for seizures in LPS and Dravet syndrome. So it very specifically states in the package insert indications for two only. Yes, if you use it off-label, we know there's a lot of products that are used off-label, but the company is not accepting any liabilities for off-label use. So there is a product already available. It costs something like £25,000 a year though. So quite prohibitive. THC, tetrahydrocannabinol, is a psychoactive component. That's the one responsible for the high of cannabis. Then the lesser known cousins of your CB varieties. there are over at least 50 plus cannabinoids in cannabis. It is a very complex, very interesting, and very fascinating plant, I must say. It's definitely taught me a lot about light. Don't let others cramp your style. If you're feeling boxed in, grow out, reach for the light, find your food, don't let others take away your good energy. So there's lots to be learned from it, but there's cannabigerol, cannabinol, and cannabichromine, which are other seed cannabinols that also have health benefits in them and are still being applied for being researched. So I've spoken about the endocannabinoid system, and our cannabinoid receptors are distributed throughout our brain, across our blood-brain barrier, and in a lot of our organs as well. I'd like to move on to the terpenes just briefly. That is the terpene wheel. Now, terpenes are the aromatic oils that are found in most plants. It's what gives lavender its flavor, its scent. It gives rosemary its scent. But terpenes come with properties. There are reasons that they are terpenes. Okay. So the primary components, or the reason that terpenes exist, are to either attract pollinators to a plant. Now remember, when I speak of terpenes, I've spoken of lavender, I've spoken of rosemary, I've spoken of lilac. Any natural occurring plant material has terpenes in it. And their reasons are to attract pollinators, to repel herbivores, or to attract predators of herbivores as well. So essentially, terpenes are a plant's defense mechanism around their surroundings and the environment. Plants aren't able to get up and run away from the predators, so they have to do something else to protect them from predators. And this is what they do. The terpene components and profile of cannabis is extremely intricate. As you can see, it's divided into the 4 basics, but extending out from that wheel is what those components will consist of. Don't look at it as segregated though. So you won't have one cannabis plant that is just sour and is just going to have the citrus and the lime element. You have complex combinations of terpenes in cannabis. That's why we have over 5,000 different varieties, because of this terpene wheel. To give you some insight into the terpenes, these are what the primary terpenes in cannabis are. Limonene, as the name suggests, are your strong citrusy lime flavors and fragrances. And they're essentially, if you take the peel of a lime or of any citrus fruit, you squeeze it, those oils that squeeze out of the peel, that's essentially what the terpenes are. So that limonenes and myrcenes are the primary terpenes in